Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well. We actually have some YSL updates. So today, Damekion Garlington took a non-negotiated Alford plea. So he's maintaining his innocence, but saying that, yes, you probably have enough evidence that I could be looking at a conviction if I took this to trial. Again, his nickname was Scarface. I think D, also another nickname there. Not Little D, though. And we're going to go through the charges, what he was charged with in this indictment, what he was originally charged with, because I think it's a bit scattered. It's hard to keep track of. But let's look over at reporting from, I think, Shadi Abusad. I saw Joseph Papp share this, but it's Shadi that wrote this article with AJC. I don't know why they use this picture of Whitaker, but they did. They used this picture of Whitaker. But Fani Willis's office, so they're going right for the Fani jugular, drops another murder charge in YSL gang case. Judge expresses surprise at plea terms ahead of sentencing. So here's what went down. Another alleged Young Slime Life member had his most serious charges reduced in exchange for pleading guilty Tuesday in Fulton County's long-running gang and racketeering case. And while you're joining in, drop in the chat what you remember about Garlington, what you think his involvement may or may not have been. For me, what stands out the most to me about Garlington is those wiretap phone calls where he was a chatty patty. Damekion Garlington, 29, faced life in prison plus an additional 35 years after being accused in the fatal shooting of rival gang members Shamel Drinks and plotting a jailhouse stabbing that injured popular rapper YFN Lucci, Fulton County District Attorney's Fani Willis's office said. And that's just Lucci, that's not Garlington. Instead, Garlington entered a non-negotiated Alford plea to 5 charges. We'll go through the full list, but they list here, including conspiring to violate the RICO Act, 2 counts of participating in criminal street gang activity, 1 count of aggravated assault, and 1 count of possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony. Now, I'm already seeing some confusion over on X, thinking that this relates to Shamel Drinks, and I actually think this is related to the April 2015 drive-by shootings that went down involving Denise Bell, and we'll look at those. We'll map that out. By entering a non-negotiated plea, Garlington leaves his fate up to the Fulton County Judge Paige Reese Whitaker, who will sentence him Wednesday afternoon. So pay attention for an update on that tomorrow. Garlington had faced murder and attempted murder charges, but those counts were reduced in exchange for his plea. Reduced to aggravated assault? ? Whitaker asked the prosecution's table incredulously. Can you picture this? Oh boy. Oh boy. Yes, prosecutor Simone Hilton replied. The plea takes out another of the most serious charges from the sprawling prosecution of the alleged gang, leaving just 1 murder charge left. So the remaining murder charge, the only remaining murder charge left. I listed the charges for Christian Eppinger and Demise McMullen in the description if you want to look at them. I also linked to the indictment. But we've got Demise McMullen on trial. He's facing a murder charge for Donovan Thomas. So Shamel Drinks, we have the acquittal for Stillwell. We had Miles Farley take a plea. We had Tinquarius Mender take a plea. The only one left relating to the Shamel Drinks murder would have been Damekion Garlington. And now we're dropping that down to aggravated assault. So that's a whole thing. No one initially charged in the case pleaded guilty to murder, and no one has yet been found guilty of it, despite the fatal events at the center of the prosecution's case. Garlington's sentencing is scheduled for 1 p.m. tomorrow. Garlington entered an Alford plea to each of the 5 counts. In such circumstances, defendants do not admit guilt, but instead acknowledge it's in their best interest to enter a plea. Well, you know what? According to the prosecution in Fulton County, we can still use factual bases from an Alford plea and read that into open court as if that's your factual acknowledgments in an Alford plea. So I'm glad AJC took the time not just to educate us, but maybe Fulton County District Attorney's Office staff members should read this and learn. Learn what an Alford plea is. While these events with these unfortunate victims did undoubtedly occur, the question is, what is the extent of my client's involvement? Garlington's attorney, Thomas Mondelli, told the judge. Mondelli acknowledged the non-negotiated plea was the right move, especially after Hilton said they planned to introduce a wiretapped conversation in which Garlington was reportedly caught on tape discussing some of the alleged crimes. And then here it goes back to general information. Willis stunned the hip-hop community in the spring of 2022 when she announced Atlanta superstars Young Thug and Gunna were among 28 people indicted by her office on gang and racketeering charges. Prosecutors accuse Young Thug, whose real name is Jeffrey Williams, of being the co-founder and leader of YSL, which they said was an Atlanta-based gang responsible of a rash of robberies, retaliatory shootings, and the deaths of at least 3 people. The first trial took nearly 2 years to conclude, making it the longest in state history. That included a grueling 10-month jury selection process and testimony from more than 175 of the prosecution's witnesses. And I get that this is all context that you would typically find in an article, right? But it's just funny that we have the title saying Fonnie Willis drops yet another murder charge as another plea deal. We had 3 murders and no guilty pleas, no convictions for any of them. Their last chance is Demise McMullen. And Jim, happily angry lawyer, angrily angry lawyer, wasn't able to find a record of arraignment for Demise McMullen. So there are some issues going on with that too, but is anybody really surprised? Fulton prosecutors are now gearing up for a second trial involving the remaining alleged YSL members who've yet to be prosecuted. This is just 2 defendants now. We've got Eppinger, who is charged with attempted murder, right? So, because the officer, David Rogers, he lived. So technically, murder, it's only Demise McMullen, but there is an attempted murder still in play here with Christian Eppinger and Demise McMullen. Jury selection set to begin June 9th, and plea negotiations are still underway, attorney said. So, maybe we'll get back again together tomorrow, chat. With a new lead prosecutor, whittled down evidence, and fewer co-defendants this time around, the second trial is expected to take far less time. And shout out to Shadi for writing this up really quick. But you like, just think about where we are. The convictions that they can brag about are all coming through plea deals, except for the one possession charge that Shannon Stillwell was found guilty of. That's where we're at. So hope everybody is doing well. Hey to Creatively in the chat. ML, what the F? Always love your name. Trey Keisha, good to see you. Yeah, what the F says, oh wow. Miss LJ, hey cat, right back at you. Red Bunny, good to see you. OG with the YSL trial chats. 420 Palm, good to see you. Zaya, is it Zaya or Zia? I'm always pronouncing things wrong, so my bad. Aretha, good to see you. SSG Nunu. Dat Pot. Yeah, I think we need your screen name pinned to the screen every time we read a detail on this. And then you guys were answering what you guys remember of Garlington. Anthony says the phone calls. 420 says Garlington's auntie being married to Gaither. And how badly we all wanted to hear questions about that. Just be messy. Ask the questions. Good to see you, Bama girl. Destined to be hanging out. Trey Keisha, yes. Trey Keisha says, remember Paige mentioned to YSL 2.0 that they would not receive a plea deal like Thug, like Jeffrey Williams. Yep. So, and now this is non-negotiated, but it's an Alford plea, and I don't know. If I put myself in the seat of the judge, and I'm already assuming that I'm in a position where I'm incredulous, right? Shadi describes Whitaker's reaction to Simone Hilton saying, yes, we want to drop a murder charge. We want to reduce it down to aggravated assault. Well, we wanted to reduce the murder and attempted murder charges down to aggravated assault. He's characterizing her looking incredulous in her reaction here. And I believe that, right? I can picture it. If I have a visceral, like an emotional reaction to you telling me you're reducing these charges, when it comes time to sentencing, I don't feel like I can reach to the far end of the highest sentencing available to me. Because if I'm so shocked you're dropping this, I have questions as to the merit of the charges itself. Like, what are we doing here? And what have we been doing here for so long? So, we'll see how that plays out. Who are the attorneys still involved? So it's Attorney Dark is still in play for McMullen. And Eppinger's attorney is Eric Johnson, I believe. We could check that out real quick. Research Georgia can be a little slow, but usually the attorneys are listed right up at the top. So, Demise, and am I missing? Is this, oh, Christian Eppinger right here. So current parties, yep. So Terrell Dark is still listed. We also have Kenneth Mitchell. I think Dark is the current attorney. I'm not sure if there's any others that are still really in these hearings with him, but maybe these other names are also still active. For Eppinger, Eric Johnson, Sean Hoover have both been on some of the motions. I think I've seen Eric Cho's name, and I don't know that I've seen Denoris Hurd. So those are still the attorneys for the remaining 2 co-defendants. Big shout out, Steph JK, good to see you. Everyone say hey to Steph JK. I loved your birthday shout out feature in Classy Beats birthday song. That was awesome, awesome, awesome. FFS with the eyeballs, good to see you. Steph says, hey guys. Oh, and it kept your membership. It says new member, but it's still showing you as 9 months. So thank you so much for supporting the channel, and super good to see you. Tat needs to get this off her mind. And then let's see. Let's go through this indictment, the current version of the indictment, because remember, we had one in May of 2022 and then one in August of 2022. So this is the August one. I think it's worth starting out and underscoring how much of a hot mess this was. What did Michael Sprinkle detail about the changes as relating to prosecution or suspects in the Donovan Thomas homicide murder? Who did they look at first? Because initially, Damekion Garlington, they were looking at him. They wanted to charge Damekion Garlington, Antonio Sledge, Shannon Stillwell, and Kenneth Copeland. Those were the initial 4 that they wanted to say committed this Donovan Thomas murder. But in this indictment, we get Javaris Bradford, we get Justin Cobb, we had Diamante Kendrick, we have Demise McMullen, we have Shannon Stillwell. So this was handled outside. I think, we had pleas for these 2 individuals. I don't remember the specifics. But for Kendrick and for Shannon Stillwell, we know we got not guilty verdicts from the jury. This went back to deliberations, and 2, the only 2 that the jury was asked to consider, the jury said, nope, you didn't meet your burden to prove either of these individuals committed this murder. So Demise McMullen is the one remaining. But remember, Garlington, who took the plea today, was initially the one they wanted to pin this on, one of the 4. If we go through what Garlington was facing in here, let's go through where his names are mentioned. Let's go to the top. So, numerically listing his charges, aka D, aka Scarface. Some of the underlying acts, the overt acts. He's sitting here with a photo with an AK-47 on social media, posted from the account with the name Scarface. Posing for photos, all these overt acts, posing for photos. Let's see. The Jeffrey Williams video that was released on Garlington's Instagram account. The lie to their mama, lie to their kids. He's named in all of this stuff, all of these acts. The infamous group picture. And now let's look at the actual charges. So, 2015, 428, the shooting on 1428 Adele Drive. That's Denise Bell, the lady with the side table. Her nephew is Darren Mills, who just won a reversal. So, there's going to be more activity there. I have an article pulled up on that. We can look at that too. But Damekion Garlington, Antonio Sledge, April 24th, they were charged with aggravated battery for disfiguring the buttocks of Denise Bell. We've got this aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Again, Sledge was charged with that as well. Garlington and Sledge, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Again, Cecilia Davis up here, Diamond Mills here. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on Natasha Battle. And let's go to the next one. So, all right, so now we've got the first participation in criminal street gang activity. This was Garlington and Sledge with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and aggravated battery as the acts. We've got, you guys remember this photo? I hate that they're so blurred out in this like printed photocopy, but you can see enough shapes that if you remember seeing this photo presented at trial, you'll remember this photo. But this is, Lil D was posting this, so Quindarius Zachary was posting this, and it's him and Garlington in this picture. But they can F with us if they want to. We gonna bring them a homicide. That was the lyric they put as the caption. Or the caption they put, I don't know if that's a lyric. That's an overt act. That is an overt act, chat. What else do we have for Garlington being mentioned? Jumping to 2019. October 7th, 2019. Defendant Damekion Garlington. This is an overt act. An associate of YSL did appear in a video released on social media wearing a YSL pendant, stating, "I can't F with you because you told, rat. Blood, yeah, I earned this stain." An overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Another overt act on February 19th, 2020. This was Damekion Garlington and Wooney Lee. So, Slime Life Shorty. They engage in a conversation regarding rival YFN gang associates disrespecting YSL, to which Garlington responded, "Fuck them boys," in an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. That's just so compelling. October 6, 2021, Damekion Garlington, an associate of YSL, did receive a communication through social media from another YSL associate, Woody Kenneth Copeland, stating, "They trying to indict us on that body." An overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. And remember, Sprinkle was asked about this. I think Kenneth Copeland was asked about it too. So, all right, February 9th, 2022. We're back to charges, right? We're back to charges. Defendants Khalif Adams, Damekion Garlington, and Jaden Myrick, associates of YSL, did unlawfully with malice aforethought and with the intent to kill, commit the felony offense of attempted murder against the person of Rayshawn Bennett, aka YFN Lucci, an associate of a rival gang, by stabbing at Rayshawn Bennett with a shank, in violation of Georgia law pursuant to OCGA 16-41, which is an act of racketeering activity and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. So that's where we're getting, this is the language that they're using here. I didn't realize, but I guess it kind of makes sense. They say stabbing and stabbing at. I guess that's specific, maybe as it should be. Also on the 9th, participation in criminal street gang attached to this attempted murder of Rayshawn Bennett. When do we get him again? All right, so now we're at the Chamel drinks. We're at March 14th, 2022. Defendants Miles Farley, Damekion Garlington, Quamarvius Nichols. I said Tincurius Mender at the beginning of the stream. I meant Nichols. And Shannon Stillwell, associates of YSL, did unlawfully and with malice aforethought commit the felony offense of murder by causing the death of Chamel Drinks, an associate of a rival gang, a human being. Is that the language that needs to be put in here? To make it qualify as murder? Was that in the other language for the other murder charges? We can look in a second. By shooting Chamel Drinks with a firearm in violation of Georgia law 16-5-1, which is an act of racketeering activity, and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Also on the 14th, participation in criminal street gang activity related to that murder charge. And then we've got overt acts. So April 3rd, 2022, a bunch of overt acts relating to him speaking over the phone while he's in custody there. So not smart, not smart, not smart. And I think that's it for his charges before he was in custody. But he does have this conspiracy to possess a telecommunications device by an inmate. Obviously, that requires you to be in custody for that charge to apply. And yeah, there we go. There we go. So those were his counts, and this is why Whitaker was like, really? Murder and attempted murder, and you're just gonna drop that down to an ag assault? So Mr. Big Play Bright, good to see you, says, I mean, Judge YSL has been telling the state to get this over with, so dropping charges helps them do that. Yeah, but it's like running up the clock, right? I mean, I think they had 2 final plea hearings. They titled the first one, they titled one a final plea hearing, and then another final plea hearing was scheduled, and they went through those motions. Les said, I thought he was home already, Munktunk. So they're still fighting to get reconsideration on the motion to vacate sentence. That's the next step that they're taking. But there's a lot of steps. Like if that isn't what works, there's more and more and more. I kind of like think of like, you know, those Russian stacking dolls. Like that's kind of how Jim and Tiffany can approach what they're trying to do to kind of right some of the misinformation, things that in my opinion seem like intentional deceit to the court, just having bad math on sentencing timetables, a bunch of different issues. And they've got to lay all that out and make the appropriate arguments through the appropriate forum. So their goal was to have him home this month in time for his son. I think it's his son, maybe his daughter, but his son's graduation, and it just didn't happen. Good to see the exception. Thank you, Steph, for sharing the AJC link in the chat. If you're watching in the chat for Replay Crew, it's in the description if you want to read that AJC article. Corky says they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And it's just wild to me that you would charge 4 people and then one does a whole bunch of interviews with you telling you everything you want to hear, and then you charge the people that he tells you did it, and then he gets immunity at trial, and you guys know the story. Christine, good to see you. Thank you for being a member for 7 months. Thank you so much. For Always Forever for Life's the same thing. They're trying to pin it on anybody. Sonia says, hi, Kat and everyone. And the other thing, too, I think it's worth saying that, in my opinion, obviously the first trial was such a hot mess that this may not have had a significant impact. But let's say that trial ran efficiently and Damekion Garlington wasn't severed. And more things could have come in because they were relating to Damekion Garlington. He's now someone sitting in that courtroom. I mean, sure, there would have been some Bruton issues if he gave interviews, right? But Bruton issues didn't stop everything from coming in for the other co-defendants. You know, Damekion Garlington being in the mix and having more conversations about the things that he was saying on these communications that were either wiretapped or said over a jail phone call, that could have prejudiced and tainted and changed. I don't want to say tainted, but it could have changed the atmosphere around the way the jury looked at the Shamel drink scenario. And I think him being severed as a co-defendant, I personally thought the 3 remaining on trial, because they're lacking the attorney power from trial 1, simple math, right? You've got 6 co-defendants. If these 3 were all together, let's say you had 9, you have all of their attorneys together. Sometimes that could become too chaotic, right? But for the most part, you've got extra eyeballs, more resources, more manpower, a better division of labor. Whereas a regular trial, you have the state with like virtually unlimited resources and just a defendant and their attorney, especially if it's a public defender who's limited on time and resources and has to ask the court for approval anytime they need an expert witness or some type of funding to hire. a researcher. You get a huge imbalance there. But having these severed co-defendants, and Damekion Garlington, I think with him off the table, I think Eppinger, I think that's private retained. I don't know if that's a public defender relationship, but for Demise McMullen, he's got a public defender who is going through mental health issues of his own. He says he's stressed out trying to get the work done that he needs to do to prepare the defense. It's just a different context entirely. And just in my mind, I like to imagine how things could have been different if one defendant was over here instead of in trial one, or if everybody was tried together. And that, oh, the buttocks. Yes. So Denise Bell, that was remember, she testified. She was upstairs in her bedroom and Love asked her about the little bottle of vodka on her night table. She had a couple drinks and there was this drive-by shooting at her home. And the state's theory was that they were trying to shoot at the property because Darren Mills was the nephew and they felt like he would be at the house and there was some ongoing beef. But Denise Bell, she was upstairs and she got shot in the buttocks. So yes, you did see buttocks. T. Wood says she should give him a 10-3, and I think he'd been locked up for about 3 already. It'll be interesting to see what she does and what the terms are. So, I don't know if the sentencing will be live tomorrow, but that is scheduled for 1 p.m. So we can check and I'll jump up if I see, like, maybe one of the Atlanta local stations will go live. So we can do that. Chelsea Lynn, good to see you. Mary W. hanging out with us as well on replay, trying to catch up. We gotta, you guys ever catch up after watching something on 2 times and then when it slows down, it's like dragging because it slows down? The change in speed. Lay Red, good to see you. We have a Viking raid. Hey to Nick Starro. Wait, you were streaming already? I thought you said you were going to do, like, later in the evening things, but look at you streaming at daytime U.S. time. Look at you adapting to our schedule. Good to see all the Vikings. Thanks for coming in. Bev's Broomstick says, sure, strumming raid. I love that. Let's see. Am I following? I'm looking a little bit at Karen Reed, but just watching it in chats and trying to catch up. That's actually what I was catching up on before I saw Thugger Daily and Joseph Papp post about this plea deal. I am looking at what's going on, obviously, with the Mungtunk resolution. I'm still trying to follow and let's be clear, I'm not following the Diddy criminal trial, but adjacent to that, I am following what's going on with Tony Busby. I've read pretty much all of the filings, the Jay-Z and Tony Busby saga, the defamation, malicious prosecution, with the Jane Doe that initially filed a complaint naming an anonymous celebrity, but then changed John Doe to identify him as Sean Carter, Jay-Z, and all of the issues that have arisen from that. There's the case going on in Alabama where Jane Doe is also named. And then there's a case in California where Camille Vasquez is actually one of the attorneys representing Busby and the Busby law firm. So I've been following that over on X. I haven't really done videos on it in a while. But, you know, I don't like... I think I just have a pet peeve, a personal grievance when an attorney's behavior could ruin a victim's shot at getting justice for something that happened to them, right? Ambulance chasing can sometimes be a way for a victim to get justice. But ambulance chasing can also deter people from wanting to hear somebody's story. And I think there's a lot wrong with that particular Jay-Z, Jane Doe, Tony Busby saga. Right? And I don't want my take on that to extend to any of the other cases, civil or criminal. But that's been a lot of bandwidth. There were some questions I saw on X about ASAP Rocky and how a hearing was rescheduled, but I do believe that was rescheduled because we had some updates to, I think it was stipulated to both parties. I don't think either of them cared about the delay. But somewhat recently, ASAP Rocky filed an amended response, or he raised new defenses because after the criminal trial ended, the A$AP Rocky trial, he was now able to raise additional defenses without risking self-incrimination. So a possible defense in a civil lawsuit would be something like, you know what, even, my ninth defense, even if I did it, I didn't cause the harm that he's claiming. So his damages are off the wall. So yeah, I might have shot something in his direction, but I didn't cause permanent injury to him, right? And that's the type of defense that you can raise, proximate cause issues. But you wouldn't want to raise that and put that into filing while you had a criminal action pending and proceeding, right? So there was a stay on that case for a while, and now he's raised these additional defenses, which now Terrell Efron, Relly, is going to take his time to respond to. With some updates there, I'll do a live stream. We can read through those documents. But again, I'm following that because there's a big intersection of big name lawyers in that situation too. You've got Tacopina, you've got Vasquez. So familiar names, familiar faces there. For Always Forever for Life says, that's why poor people usually go to jail and rich people get away and go home. Sad, but true. And I think you guys have heard my gripe. I don't think Courtney Clenny is actually innocent. I don't like what the prosecution's doing with her case. And as much as I want to laugh like you bought this house after moving money with your father, at the same time, I don't like the idea that somebody that had a lot of money and could afford a defense at one point in time, that a trial is taking so long because a prosecutor violated attorney-client privilege and looked through things they weren't supposed to be looking through. And because the trial's been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, someone with millions can no longer afford a defense. What does that mean for the rest of anybody else facing a criminal trial? Just crazy. Okay, Pink Slime with the terminology says mal de débarquement. What does that mean? Hold on. I feel like I recognize some of these phrases. So, rare vestibular disorder, characterized by the persistent sensation of motion, such as rocking or swaying, even when stationary. It often occurs after travel, particularly by boat, and can last from hours to years. And you said this a few minutes ago. My brain is going to Relly with this, and I don't think that that's the context you meant, but I'm just thinking of Relly saying he can't help but continue to rock and sway because he's always got to dodge bullets like a movie. No, Woody pushed... Who did Woody push into court, guys? Who did Woody push into court? No, it wasn't Denise Bell. Oh my god, it's just gone. Maybe I have it in my notes and I can, So maybe I put something like guest appearance from Woody and I can see who that was. If the chat didn't already answer. Oh, Pink Slime says that's the feeling you get when you change from 2 times to 1 time. If you guys haven't paid attention if you're using like YouTube on a phone, like the mobile app, you can actually go up to 3 times and 4 times. It's awesome. It's awesome, especially to speed through some stuff that's like a pause, but you don't want to try to scrub forward by dragging the line on your phone. 3 times and 4 times. Hard to listen to for some people, depending on how fast they speak. But awesome, awesome feature. I wish they did that on like the web browser version of YouTube. No, nothing with wheels. Say Woody. When's the last time I mentioned Woody? Yeah, so I'm back already. Yeah, I don't think I have that. It was the grandma. Kenny Boo's grandma. Kenny Boo. So Kenny Boo, his grandma, Woody brought her in the wheelchair. And he like walked right past the jury too, right? Because the jury box is sitting right here. And the witness, well, this is like a bad way to describe it. It's just like me on a screen. But like the jury box was right off screen, like a step away, a gap away from where the witness box was. There's like just enough room for people to walk up to the witness box, but then the jury's sitting right there. So no way that they wouldn't have seen that it was Woody walking in there like that. Oh my goodness. My goodness. Shout out to Flesh of the Gods too. He just delivered an answer for us in the chat, but also here dropping gifted membership. Super, super nice. We got 1 and 2 going. Steph JK dropped Flesh of the Gods link. Friday night, you guys. Oh, Saturday. Flesh of the Gods did a highlight reel of Simone Hilton's moments. Of course, the closing arguments were a big part of that. But there were a lot of, honestly, some moments, and I don't know if it's because I tuned them out because Hilton can be kind of slower, boring in the way she questions. Maybe I just didn't pay close attention. Maybe it's been so long. There was a part that his highlight reel caught. It was awesome watching the recap with everybody. Some witnesses on the stand. I don't know who it was. I think it was Kenneth Copeland's sister. She's trying to describe that an incident happened and she tried to call police. And then the police show up and they arrest her, herself, the one who calls the police for help. She ends up getting cuffed. And Hilton, in what I think is a stupid move, was like, what? Wait, repeat that? And as a listener, when she said that, I was like, wait, what? And it's the type of thing I'd go back and rewind and hear to make sure I heard. Like, this is why people don't want to call the police for help, because all of a sudden, now I'm the one in trouble. But Hilton, as the prosecutor, she did the work for me. She asked the question again and had this witness on the stand repeating, yeah, I called the officers for help and then they arrested me. So there was just like, man, there were some moments in that trial that were still moments on their own, but there were just so many, so much going on in that trial that little things like that, like just hidden gems. So with Flesh of the Gods, he does a lot of bringing all the little details together, compilations. Really one of my favorite channels, and chats. You'll see familiar faces to hang out with. If you're missing your YSL community and the recap, stuff about the trial, you've definitely got to subscribe and hang out with us over there. But I was like, why would Hilton ask that question again? Why? Lovely says, I would have loved to see them go to trial a second time, but I know those guys need to be home. And I don't know, you know, this is the thing. If he gets sentenced tomorrow, we might get some indication of, you know, how long, how much time he's actually going to need to serve, or if it's going to be probated, what that looks like. For Eppinger, I think Eppinger has like some separate charges where if he were to be found not guilty, I think he's still got to do time, right? And a lot of the others that we had some null process come down. I think Abate said we're going to null process a bunch of these things. It was like 7 in a row. We got a bunch of charges that were null processed, but a lot of those related to the remaining co-defendants that were already doing significant time, like decades to life, for other convictions. So yeah, if we go to a trial with the remaining 2, we're just down to 2. Just down to 2. And still no jury conviction on a murder. So let's see. Oh wait, Trikisha says I missed something. I don't know what you missed. Steph JK gifting 5 subs. I better see 1 million Steph JKs in the chat. We love our Steph JK around here. Always good to see you popping in. Thank you so much for gifting 5 subs. I see Steph and Dolly meeting each other in the chat. Good to see them both. We've also got, what did I say? Where did I put this link? I thought I had a link open to, so Law and Crime is actually covering what I mentioned on this stream, but what really Jim, Happily Angry Lawyer, has been following with Darren Mills. So Darren Mills is the nephew of Denise Bell, the woman that was shot in the buttocks that Damekion Garlington and Antonio Sledge were charged with aggravated assault. This was the April 28th, 2015 Adele Drive shooting. That's the nephew. Darren Mills was in trouble of his own in a separate case. And I don't know if I'm going to agree with Law and Crime's take here reading this article. I haven't read it yet. We're going to read it together. But from the issues I've seen Jim R. talk about a little bit, and he's supposed to be doing a stream on this when he gets a chance, just another hot mess in none other than Fulton County. So what else is new? What else is new? But Law and Crime, I was excited to see them give this coverage. You know, one of the things with the YSL trial is, we had the big global news almost of Brian Steele getting arrested, held in contempt. But besides that, a lot of the coverage stemmed around it involving young thug, Jeffrey Williams. And it was such a long case. Major outlets weren't really devoting journalists to write and recap the story every day. So it's just surprising to me to see this reversal with Darren Mills get some coverage. And I don't know if it's just because Law and Crime has their eyes on Fulton County, or maybe they're picking up on some of just the research work that Happily Angry Lawyer is doing. And I think it's a little bit of both, but awesome that it could be the latter at all. So show Happily Angry Lawyer some love anytime you see him. He's really doing great things. A lot that he's doing with YouTube and on Twitter, but he's doing so much research on the back end and procuring documents, which is not cheap or easy to do, just to uncover the paperwork injustices. So let's see how Law and Crime writes this up. Whether I like it or not, I'm happy that it's getting broader attention. So juror's old cocaine conviction grants accused attempted murderer new trial. And this is Conrad Hoyt writing this. And they're just saying, what, a sheriff's deputy? Why did they use this picture? They just pulled this picture from 2023. Like, is this related to a hearing he had? Or is this just a random guy? A random picture of a guy standing in front of the Fulton County, walkway bridge. All right, so a Georgia man in prison for attempted murder and other charges has been granted a new trial after a member of the Fulton County jury that convicted him was found to have had an undisclosed cocaine possession conviction. Now, this is a procedural issue. They're going to explain why. The Georgia Court of Appeals on Thursday unanimously granted Darren Rayton Mills Jr.'s request for a new trial, with Judge Wade Padgett finding that... Oh, did they link to the... Cool, we can look at the filing a little more. The trial court erred in denying Mills' motion for a new trial based on the fact that a felon juror participated in deliberations and a verdict in violation of the Georgia Constitution. So when you have this felony conviction, you're ineligible. You're not supposed to sit on a jury. So I don't know how we got there, but we did. Judges Sarah Doyle and Todd Markle concurred. The case stems from a 2015 robbery and shooting of a person referred to as HP in the filing. So, okay, so Law and Crime didn't go and look, or are they protecting this guy's identity? I'm not sure that the identity is actually fully sealed. Because they do just refer to it here, but I feel like Law and Crime maybe could have uncovered that. Mills and the two co-defendants, Dominique Carter and Katez, I can never say his name, White, were indicted the following year for criminal attempt to commit murder. 2 counts of participation in criminal street gang activity, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated battery, armed robbery, hijacking a motor vehicle, arson in the 2nd degree, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. So I wonder if they got this charging right. We've got this 131 here, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. They didn't try to go for 133 and tack on this by a convicted felon. Mills pled not guilty to all counts and the case went to trial. According to the appeal court's ruling, during jury selection, the trial judge asked the group of prospective jurors, is there anyone on our panel who's been convicted of a felony and has not had their rights restored? No one is said to have responded, including a juror named in the ruling as CLL. CLL causing a whole bunch of chaos. The trial proceeded and Mills was found guilty on all counts except for possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Mills requested a new trial. and upon learning of CLL's 1995 conviction of possession of cocaine and subsequent first offender status revocation in 1997, after being found with cocaine while on probation, added in his motion that this juror's presence deprived him of a fair trial, the court's ruling noted. The trial court denied Mills' request, finding that CLL's crime was not so recent or infamous to have infected the proceedings, and determined... So this is the first layer, right? They're at first court of appeals layer. And they're like, nope, it's so long ago, it's not significant enough, it's not going to, taint your jury trial. And they determined that Mills offered no evidence demonstrating that his trial or its result was unfair. Padgett recounted, noting Mills appealed that decision. The appeals court then cited Georgia law and precedent as to why it disagreed with the trial court. So this is the appeals court saying, like, well, you actually should have listened to Mills' request. First, the plain language of the First Offender Act is unambiguous and encompassing in its reference to a felony without any distinction. So, if it's a felony, if that's the classification, it doesn't matter if you think it's infamous or not. It doesn't matter. And it's unambiguous. So, no distinction or subdividing between a felony that is infamous and one that is not infamous, Padgett wrote. Padgett's laying down the grammar law. Second, as our Supreme Court has made clear, it would seem that any crime designated as a felony and punishable by imprisonment would be a crime involving moral turpitude within the meaning of the law. Felonies are infamous. Mills is serving his roughly 30-year sentence in Calhoun State Prison. Oh, and that's where it ends. So, slightly kind of detailed coverage there. Surprising to see Law and Crime, which is a national network. It's not like a local Atlanta news station covering that. So even though I said, did they really research it that much? I'm not going to complain that much. Happy to see it. Yeah, for Always Forever for Life, did Happily Angry Lawyer change his name? He made it Angrily Angry Lawyer, but I think it's back to Happily Angry Lawyer now. So. Okay, yeah, T. Wood. Thank you, T. Wood. Says, Briss, so that's Eppinger, already has life, and Nard's got, real time. So, and we gotta be clear, I said Tinquarius Mender at the beginning of the stream when I meant Nichols, but speaking of Tinquarius Mender, he's an AKA Nard, and Demise McMullen is also AKA Nard, right? So the Nard here, I think T. Wood, I think you're saying Demise McMullen already has real time. And I believe when Tinquarius Mender took a plea, his attorney was YSL Nicole. He had another pending case to go deal with. So he had other sentence issues. So it wasn't like, I think we were surprised. We're like, oh, is Tinquarius Mender going to be let out? But he had a whole other case to handle. Okay, yeah, and Ocean Beach says he did change, just saw Happily Angry Esquire. So there we go. He's just racking up the AKAs, you guys. That's what he's doing. Plans and Pens joining us. Good to see you, Plans and Pens. Dolly, while you're here, I know there are so many people watching the Karen Read trial, but there's also a ton of people that are like, is there something other than Karen Read I can go and watch and talk about? But if you guys like awesome judges, courtroom feeds, you guys like watching live court and don't want to follow the Karen Read trial, we've got Judge Fleischer and then Judge Simpson. I know you've done some other judges too, but I think you've streamed both of those recently. Over with Dolly. Live court with Dolly. So go and check that out. It's a great way to get through the workday, you guys. If you need some content to watch while you're working, go hang out over there. Let's see. Yeah, Chelsea Lynn says, it's sad it's not just in Fulton County, but many states are like this. Yep. I hope God exposes all the ones doing shady work. If you guys want some good news, let me pull up the article. This would be a great way to close it out. Some positivity, right? The Innocence Project. I got an email from them. I didn't see them tweet about it, so I tweeted it really quickly. they put up this article summarizing an Indiana bill, which is not something that would come across my news feed, I don't think. Maybe it will now. But I don't know if my news ticker would really push Indiana news to me. Maybe it would keyword it to me. But here's some great positive news, and I think more states should do this. Some states do have bills that reform eyewitness identification, but there are some specifics in this bill that I think are really wise and, kind of nuanced. So Indiana passes first eyewitness identification reform bill, tackling a leading cause of wrongful convictions. And they have the stats in here. We'll get to them. Let's see. Backed by exoneratory testimony and decades of research, Senate Bill 141 introduces key protections to ensure more reliable identifications and a stronger criminal legal system. So this month, Indiana took a pivotal step towards strengthening the integrity of its legal system, criminal system, when Governor Mike Braun signed Bill 141, the state's first eyewitness identification reform, into law. The legislation was championed by the Innocence Project and the Notre Dame Exoneration Justice Clinic. Eyewitness misidentification has been a leading cause of wrongful convictions across the United States. Do you guys remember when they had Quindarius Zachary testifying to whether or not he was pointing at photos that were on the table during an interview he did with detectives? So speaking of eyewitness identification, there was that was one of the funnier moments there in YSL 1. It has played a role in 70% of the more than 375 wrongful convictions overturned just by DNA evidence. In Indiana, 36% of wrongful convictions have involved mistaken eyewitness identification. This has resulted in a cumulative 245 years of unjust imprisonment for innocent individuals. And again, this is constrained to Indiana. These specific cases, 245 years, you can't put a price tag on that. So Senate Bill 141 introduces 3 critical reforms. There's a fourth that I think is really important too. Law enforcement must now inform witnesses that the accused may or may not be present in the lineup, and that they will continue their investigation whether or not an identification is made, reducing pressure to make a selection. Because think about it. You want to identify somebody, and you might think, they're showing me 6 people, one of them has to be the person, right? So there's only a 5 in 6 chance I might have it wrong. But even if I'm not sure, if I don't get it right, somebody dangerous could be out on the street, or they won't even look any further. So this type of reassurance, and also, it might not even be one of these 6 people. So if you don't actually know that it is in fact one of these 6 people, it might look like you're just lying. So think twice before you just try to point to somebody because you feel like you have to pick somebody. We've also got this, non-suspect fillers. So the other pictures that they fill up the page with, chosen for lineups, must resemble the witness's description, and the suspect should not noticeably stand out from the fillers. So don't just, if the witness has already described somebody to you, and you give them, like, let's say they say somebody, like, let's do like a standing lineup. Let's say the witness says the person was over 6 feet tall, and you do a lineup with a bunch of people that are really short and then one really tall guy. What's going to happen there? What's going to happen there? So this one, I feel like you don't even need to really spell out why it's important. It's just making it so the things that we barely notice in a fleeting moment where we might not have the most accurate image in our mind of who we saw committing a crime, we're not just going to make it a process of elimination guesstimate. The next one is witnesses' confidence levels at the time of identification must be recorded, providing context for the reliability of their testimony. So this is a bit more than just, you get an officer on the stand or an officer writing an affidavit and saying, we did the witness identification lineup and the victim identified Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so as the perpetrator. And that's all the context we get. Nope, now you have to record anything that the witness may have said describing their confidence level. So, I don't really know. Or can I look at that other page again? I think it's this guy. I mean, all of those little language think. Can I look at that other one? I don't really know. Each one of those little phrases pokes away at the confidence level. And then they have this detail here that I think is also important. Additionally, Senate Bill 141 stipulates that if facial recognition technology is used to identify a suspect, law enforcement must corroborate this identification with additional evidence before proceeding with a lineup, ensuring that facial recognition alone does not serve as the sole basis for suspect identification. So I think they didn't bullet point it here, but I still there's issues with facial recognition technology. And, there's also a kind of, I would say, at the introduction of this technology, I think people can put more faith. Well, if software identifies something, that might be more reliable than a human in certain circumstances or certain use cases. If we need both, I think that's a bit better. I think that's a healthier approach. However, what does a law enforcement officer corroborating this identification? What's the additional evidence that they would need to corroborate? Could that just be somebody lives in that neighborhood? So circumstantially, it's possible that that person could have been present in a 5-block radius. Is that all it would take? So this is a little bit unspecified, but at least it's saying do something. They continue with the adoption of these reforms, Indiana is the latest state to standardize its identification procedures and consider model practices for conducting lineups, which are backed with over 4 decades of research and have broad support from scientists, law enforcement, and prosecutors. We have a quote here from Jimmy Garule. That's the director of Exoneration Justice Clinic. He says, I am proud of the work done by the Notre Dame Exoneration Justice Clinic and our partners, as well as exonerees like Leon Benson, who relived his trauma and shared his story to prevent future miscarriages of justice. We look forward to the next legislative session when we still continue to advocate for policies and legislative reforms that prevent and address wrongful convictions. And then they go into Benson's story. So he testified at this hearing to help get this bill passed. He was wrongfully convicted for a 1998 murder in Indianapolis. The prosecution's case primarily relied on an erroneous identification from a witness who observed the attacker from approximately 150 feet away in near darkness. So you remember in YSL and probably other trials you've watched, do you remember what was it like outside? Was it sunny? Was it daytime? Was it dark? And another unreliable identification from an individual with a history of mental illness and a personal grudge against Mr. Benson. No physical evidence linked him to the crime. Since his release and exoneration, Mr. Benson has been an outspoken advocate for criminal legal reform, emphasizing the dangers of eyewitness misidentification. I hope that, so this is Mr. Benson speaking, I hope that by being behind this bill, it would urge people who are in power to give people like me an opportunity to get in a position to get the job done. Mr. Benson testified in front of the committee. I think this encourages other exonerees to use their platform to push to make things better. So there we go. We get in some, let's see. Oh, so these were Indiana cases too. So William Barnhouse and Larry Mays, those were Indiana cases. They go on to give some context here that Mr. Barnhouse spent 25 years in prison for a 1992 sexual assault conviction based largely on a suggestive roadside identification. He was exonerated by DNA evidence in 2017. Mr. Mays was wrongfully convicted in 1982 after the witness identified him under hypnosis, a fact withheld from the jury. What the hell were they doing in 1982? He served 21 years before DNA testing cleared his name in 2001. Both cases exemplify the catastrophic consequences of flawed identification practices. While Senate Bill 141 marks significant progress, it does not include all recommended best practices by leading scientific and legal authorities. Notably, it omits the requirement of double-blind administration, where the lineup administrator also doesn't know who the accused is. So they can't, like, implicitly, accidentally, or intentionally steer or cue somebody. Are you sure you don't see it on that page? You know, a question like that can steer somebody. So, they weren't using... Oh, man. This is crazy. I'm shocked that this is not part of this bill. So currently, this bill does not include a requirement of double-blind administration. So that is not a requirement in Indiana right now for eyewitness identification procedures. That's a little crazy. Notably, it omits the requirement of double-blind administration, where the lineup administrator also doesn't know who the accused is, to prevent them from unintentionally influencing witnesses. The Innocence Project will continue to advocate for the adoption of double-blind lineups in the future, as well as support implementation as a next step. The organization will collaborate with public defenders and police on a series of training sessions on the new law, emphasizing the importance of unbiased procedures. And I guess if you want to be malicious, you could just say you don't know you don't know something and just do it for your buddy, right? Oh, I'll stand in for that double blind thing. I got you, bro. I don't know, like maybe there's like some type of third party, or I mean, couldn't software help with this? I don't know. I feel like there's a solution here where it's not that difficult to come up with some type of reconciliation that's better than what exists right now, right? Better is sometimes enough. It might not be the most perfect thing ever, and we might have to make changes and continue to improve. But can we do something a little better right now? But they say Indiana took a positive first step towards addressing erroneous eyewitness identifications with this passage. Said Innocence Project State Policy Advocate Winnie Yee, not to be confused with Wooney Lee. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with policymakers and law enforcement stakeholders on future reforms and trainings. Yes, please do the trainings as well, because I don't know about the new procedures. To guarantee that all best practices are one day implemented and Indiana maintains the highest standards of criminal justice. Make it a competition. Make these states compete to have the highest integrity in their criminal justice system. Make it a competition, and let's see. Let's see if people get motivated. The hypnosis for Always Forever for Life says, hypnosis? What the hell? Mary W., that's horrible. Yeah, when I was reading that, I mean, okay. Okay. Thank you, Steph, for sharing the link to Innocence Project. Innocence Project has great content writers, right? This was easy to digest. There was good context without it being too long. You also notice a lot of internal linking. So if you want to read more about William Barnhouse story, it'll click anything that they internally link and they'll give you a lot more context. So I really like the way they have their website and their content set up. This was the article we just read. I'll update the description of this video when we close out. But you can go through, reread the story, but also click in, look at all the details when they talk about, you know, the research on issues with eyewitness identification. You can go and read all of this stuff. They're so good with their linking. And that's like a full-time job for somebody to sit there and do this really well. Probably a team. We've got, Ocean Beach is watching Karen Reed. Everybody's watching that. Everybody's watching it, including myself. So I think recently, if you're looking for a way to get caught up with Karen Reed, Millionaire Mel, right before this trial started, completed a full rewatch of Trial 1 because she didn't watch it. So she went through Trial 1 without, like, she kept blinders on to all the pre-trial and issues that were going on leading up to Trial 2. She tried to stay away from any exposure to that until she got through Trial 1. So that's a great part, Millionaire Mel, to go watch that. She's also covering, like, everybody's doing Karen Reed Trial 2. It's like a wall of live streams, and I never know who to watch with. But definitely my recommendation for a quick rewatch, Trial 1 in full. You'll get a lot of Lally. A lot of lally. Oh boy. Yeah, can't turn away from Karen Reed. Sick of Karen Reed after today. Yeah, they ended early. They're going to start an hour late tomorrow. You guys, if you liked arguments, we had a lot of them in YSL, especially with the expert gang witnesses, and especially when they were switching back and forth between being a fact witness and an expert witness. But arguments from the defense attorneys on the province of the jury. What is the jury? What's an issue of fact? And if it's an issue of fact and the parties aren't willing to stipulate to it, it's for the jury. It's for the jury to look at. And it's something within the ken of the jury, K-E-N. And rather than just say, for an expert witness in the YSL trial to get up on the stand and opine on what a lyric has to mean, what caught down bad must and only can mean. It's not for an expert witness to opine and conclude that that's what that lyric must mean. The jury, using their sense and experience, can make that determination themselves. So the gang expert might be able to provide some context and analyze what was surrounding when that statement was said, but they simply shouldn't be making a conclusion of fact that that's what that line meant. That's up to the jury. So we had a similar argument like that from Alessi, defense attorney for Karen Reed, at the end of the day today in relation to Dr. Welcher. And Beverly's like, all right, well, we'll get back an hour early tomorrow, guys, and then we'll sort this out in the morning, and I'll have my decision for you in the morning. So a bit of a mess over there. She keeps saying, we're on track, jury. You'll be happy to know we're on track. We're on track. Yeah, so Zariah says YNW Millie has as much corruption in the prosecution's office as the YSL trial. I think, we talk about this can happen in any district attorney's office, but Florida prosecutors seem to have some cojones with the audacity, right? I'm seeing a lot of that over in the Courtney Clenny trial. And again, I'm not invested on seeing an acquittal for Courtney Clenny, but I am invested in a conviction and a trial being pursued fairly, fair prosecution. Just a hot mess. They just poke around and do what they want and think that there's no rules that they have to follow. And there's a lot of that over in YNW Mellie's case. I was thinking today, I think it'd be kind of cool if there's a mistrial because of a hung jury. And unfortunately, it would come down to taxpayer money at the end of the day, but there would be some impact, I think, to constituency and voting. But if a district attorney decides to retry something after a hung jury, and it ends up being an acquittal in round 2, I think they should have to contribute something to any expenses incurred by the defense. I'm so tired of there being just this almost blanket immunity to prosecutors. You can just keep trying the case. You're salaried. You have the department's resources, which is coming from taxpayer money and federal grant money at times, at your disposal to do these things. Like in the Karen Reed case, they bought a Lexus just to retest and play around with it. They bought a Lexus for the sake of it. Like, it's just... So if we could have some type of way that if you're going to keep trying somebody, there's got to be some type of publicized, the district attorney now has to pay out this much of your taxpayer money because they decided to try somebody a second and third time and the person ended up getting acquitted after all of that. There's been a few instances where people were retried 5 times just to get to an acquittal. But you would think one-time retrial I can see. If I get a hung jury twice, I just feel like that's reasonable doubt. Why are we still going? Why are we still going? Just crazy. Yeah, some accountability. I don't know the system to solve that, right? But something. Chloe Albert's revenge showed up. We said the magic word. We said Karen Reed trial. We said the Lexus. Chloe Albert's revenge, good to see you. Everybody was looking for you. I keep wanting to say Friday, but it was Saturday over in our Hilton recap over at Flesh of the Gods. So good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Chloe says Proctor now uses that Lexus to drive Uber. Oh no. Oh no. He's probably shaving numbers off his time. Like, I'm the fastest Uber driver ever. Good to see you, Toria Williams. Yeah, touche, not a small rinky-dink Lexus. I mean, Lexus in general comes with the price tag. It's like the fancy brand of Toyota. Erin, good to see you. I think I've seen you over in some Karen Reed chats recently. Maybe it was a different subject, but I think it was Karen Reed. It's a smart guess at this time, right? Everyone's doing Karen Reed. Chloe Albert's Revenge says, Memorial Day sale. Get your Jen McCabe butt dial booty workout tape. Quantities limited, only $9.99 each. Filmed in Canton, Massachusetts. Tariff-free. Get yours today. Is there like a bonus add-on where you can get the Brian and Brian butt dials? The part 2? The part 2. Oh my goodness. Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe. Let's see. Yeah, Trikisha says didn't watch 1.0. Bev's gonna allow it. I mean, probably. But I mean, also from the defense perspective, I get why you'd want to keep it out entirely. But if this guy is allowed to conclude, the issue is he's this expert, and the prosecution want this expert to conclude that a collision happened. And their argument is, look, the issue for the jury to decide is whether it's, manslaughter or murder with premeditation. So they're not asked to determine whether or not a collision did or didn't happen. And I get that, technically they're asked to determine both of those things, but it's not an either or. They're asked to decide, did this person do this, and did the prosecution prove this and all the elements beyond a reasonable doubt, yes or no? And then the other thing that Hank is treating an either or choice, like you have to choose one or the other, but it's not a one or the other, is, do you think for this specific thing, the Commonwealth met their burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt all of these elements, yes or no? The either or is a yes or no. The either or isn't murder versus manslaughter. So, didn't really love that argument from Hank, but just a hot mess over there. David's trailer says, haven't watched all of Reed, but to me it looks like Auntie Bev is worse than Glanville. And I hear he says it's a bell curve. Potentially criminal will say, just like everybody else, judges are people. And there's a bell curve. So, let's talk about averages. If your average judge is here, half the judges that exist in this world are going to be worse than that. That's just how numbers work when you talk about averages. So, I don't think that bad judges are uncommon. I just don't think so. Okay, so Trikisha said in my chat, Linda said he can't say with scientific certainty. It's prohibited in Massachusetts, so this will be interesting. And yeah, they want to specify with engineering certainty. But I don't know. I think that if it comes in, and then there's RICO witnesses that are going to come testify. If they can, rebut that, depending on what the jury believes or who they find more credible or more knowledgeable or who they trust is actually able to decide something with certainty. If they trust the ARCA witnesses more, it's going to discredit Welcher further. So yeah, we might trust ARCA witnesses a little more, but especially since Welcher was so confident and it just doesn't add up. The confidence is now questionable, right? Sometimes the degree of confidence, I think Viverito's a great example. Viverito might not have been so bad for the YSL prosecution if she didn't insist she was right. That confidence can be more discrediting than the underlying thing that you're confident about. So, but yeah, that's why, but Trikisha, did you hear the argument how Hank kept trying to say engineering certainty? He kept trying to change the word. He kept trying to play with the words there. Oh my goodness. Guys, I do highly recommend if you are looking for a trial to watch and you're looking for something. There is a lot of like kind of weird, salacious infighting between Free Karen Reed and anti-Free Karen Reed cliques over on Twitter. That can be a little bit deterring. But if you like live, exciting trials with great arguments, really Alessi has brought in so many great legal arguments to this trial. And if you enjoyed antics like John Lewin in the prosecutor in the ASAP Rocky trial, Hank Brennan is not too far off from John Lewin with the attitude, the whining, the theatrics. He's not quite as bad as Lewin, but he's close. He's close. So I definitely do recommend it if you like those types of trials, those types of things. Karen Reed's got it. Karen Reed trial has those things. Just crazy. Mike the Mob, good to see you. Says, hey, cat, not in the hat. Hold on. I've got my docket like it's hot hat, guys. Is it backwards? Like, does it show you like mirror image words on your screen? I should have been wearing my docket like it's hot hat because we're covering kind of a docket update here. I got it on now. Thank you so much for stopping in. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the reminder about my docket like it's hot hat. Good to see you guys. Where are you guys going after this? It's 9 o'clock. I don't think Ian Runkle's streaming his recap today of Karen Reed. That was going to be one thing I suggested. Redirect. Can I redirect this? Why won't it let me redirect? Yeah, Trikisha says I'm going to bed. Heck yeah. An early bedtime. I've been trying to play video games for I have turned on a game and have tried to have a moment to just like couch potato out and play video games for just like an hour, 2 hours. And something always comes up with work. So I think maybe I'm going to try to do that tonight and end up staying up late. I'm just trying. I want to kill some zombies or something. I want to like save the world from the apocalypse with State of Decay 2. But bed could be an option too. And speaking of early bedtime, not so early, The World's End says, hey, cat mods and chat. It's 2:05 in the UK. Woke up and listening in. Why are you up so early? You heard there's a YSL update. Come quickly. So good to see you. Good morning to you. Good morning to any of our friends overseas that are just up, either haven't gone to bed yet or are just waking up like The World's End. Chelsea says, I've said Hank reminds me of Randall Memes, the tattletale nerd from Recess. No way. Okay, let's do a vote chat. We have Randall Memes. Let's see. Okay, well, this picture's a little blurry, but you guys, we've got option for Hank 1. And I think my comparison is more because of the voice. More because of the voice. But I'm going to throw my suggestion into the ring. Let's see. Open image. Mandark from Dexter is who Hank Brennan reminds me of. And it's just because Mandark has that voice. Let's see if I can find a quick clip. Like, that just reminds me of Brennan. So it's not necessarily the looks. It's the laugh. But I definitely see the... that's kind of how he asks his question over at the lectern sometimes. So I really play a lot of retro games. Like I have a Super Nintendo that I try to like play when I cook, and I haven't been cooking much. I love retro games. I love Mario. I love all the Donkey Kong countries. I can beat a lot of them really quickly because it's just become muscle memory. I love Nintendo 64. Recently just repurchased a GameCube. Haven't gotten to play it yet, but I want to play Super Mario Sunshine. Um, Not really that into shooter style games, but I love State of Decay. State of Decay 2 especially. I love Ark Survival, Evolved and Ascended. Um, I've played Stardew Valley for hours, but I think with Stardew Valley, I think it's incredible the type of sciencing and like storylines that other gamers that play Stardew Valley come up with concepts to challenge themselves, right? They'll just be like, Stardew Valley is like a farming game and you have like energy that drains the more work you do. And there's challenges where people will be like, I tried to beat Stardew Valley without using any energy. And they have to they have to figure out how to move forward in the game by giving themselves these self-inflicted restrictions. And I think that that's insane to watch. Ark Survival Evolved, there's channels that do social experiments. Ark Survival Evolved is like an online, you can play online on public servers, or privately owned servers that allow like 100 people to play. But you can like fight people, you can tame dinosaurs, you can build buildings, you can like fight bosses, which is really cool. Like you can tame like brontosauruses and pterodactyls. They're called pteranodons in the game. But there's these YouTube channels that do these social experiments where we set 100 random people into an Ark world, and you start with nothing. Start with like underwear, and you have to like craft your first pickaxe from a stone and rock. And we gave them 7 days, and they'll cover in a cinematic way the evolution of how these 100 people divide themselves into tribes and form alliances and build fortresses and go to war with each other by the end of day 7. So just really cool. And there's like backstabbing. People put in like moles in the other people's tribes. And it's just like cool from a social perspective to see what people, as role-playing in this video game, reenact through this game itself. Just crazy stuff out there. Yeah, Pink Slime says the Sega Master System. Chelsea says I have an old Nintendo, the NES. Heck yeah. Mike the Mob, I've thought about doing a game stream 2 weeks ago. I got my Streamlabs and my Twitch connected for the first time in a long time. Was about to hit start, and I got a call from work, and then the rest of my day was gone. So I think it's just bad luck if I pull up a game, it triggers somebody from work to need something. It's just gonna happen. So, but eventually. Mike the Mob also says, been a while, it's my bedtime now. Well, I hope you have a great night, Mike the Mob. You're going to get us out of here on a great note. The world's end, have a good morning for all of us. I think all of us are like, we're going to go to sleep. And the world's end is going to live life for us until we wake up. Big thank you here for the love from Mike the Mob. Chloe Albert's Revenge wants to play Paperboy. You could get an emulator. Get an emulator. Let's see. I wouldn't be surprised if that's such a... They have a web version on Arcade Spot. I don't know if it's exactly the same gameplay, but sometimes the programming, it requires such little bandwidth that they can actually host it on a web page. You don't even need to get an emulator. So you could try that, Chloe. Are you going to update your name to Cora? They renamed Chloe to Cora. The World's End plays chess on my own. I always win. I know what my opponent's going to play. Wasn't there just another big drama in the chess world? The guy got caught cheating and then doubled down. What was his name? There's always some drama in the chess world. It's crazy. Okay, all the results are coming up. They're old, so I don't think it was a competition. I think he was like playing online and was just suspiciously making all the moves that like the computer chess genius would make. And it somehow spilled that he was referencing, like he was playing a mock game on the side off screen, mimicking what his opponent, his real human opponent, was doing, and just following the move that his computer used to respond to it. So that was like 2 weeks ago I saw that. There's always drama in the chess world. Janet, good to see you. We are wrapping it up, you guys. For a redirect. Let's see. If you guys want to do Kieran Reed, I do see potentially Criminals Live. I could send you over there, but I guarantee you he's about to close out because he's been going for a while and they ended early today. The only other Kieran Reed I see is Turtle Boy, and I don't know when he started. Everything else is, I have like a ton of like gaming and weather stuff coming up as suggestions. Let's see. And Nurse Kim is live. I've never sent anyone over to Nurse Kim. I could show Nurse Kim some love. We'll do that. That's some Kieran Reed content. Martha Griffin's she's gonna hate me. She's like, no more Kieran Reed. No more Kieran Reed. My bad. And Flesh of the Gods, are you about to start something? Hold on. Because if you're gonna do a stream tonight, we can get everyone over there. Especially since that would be familiar faces in the chat. No, nothing. But let me link to the ADA Hilton compilation, you guys. I'm dropping in the chat right now, Flesh of the Gods, best of ADA Hilton. The Hilton highlights on Flesh of the Gods channel. Go check that out. Highly recommend also, you can run back the chat replay and pretend you're live watching it all over again. So go and do that. Yeah, Martha says we good. Thanks for hanging out, Mary W. Flesh of the Gods is not going to go live, but check out that compilation. The World's End, thanks for being a member for 8 months. So glad to catch you, Kat. Good to see you as always. And right back at you. Guys, I'll keep you updated on whatever sentencing happens with Damekion Garlington tomorrow. Probably a community post with the document. If there's anything more that happens. They said the other attorneys were discussing pleas still. If there are more pleas, we'll go live again and we'll talk about those conditions, if it's Alfred or not. I don't know if Alfred's going to be on the table for Eppinger. But maybe Demise McMullen, he's facing a murder charge, but we just saw the state agree to reduce a murder and attempted murder charge that Damekion Garlington was facing down to an ag assault. So I don't know. Who knows? Flesh of the Gods says Thursdays and Saturdays. So tonight we're going to go check out Nurse Kim. I've seen her featured on a lot of channels, but I've never hung out over there. But she popped up as a suggested redirect for Kieran Reed streams. So if you want to come hang out over there, looking forward to hanging out with you. Otherwise, maybe see you tomorrow. Bye, guys. And we're ending with the Recess character on the screen. Oh, my God. Take care.